I'm wondering when we look at the liturgy, there's a lot of changes internally, but then externally, I think a lot of people look at the liturgy as kind of boring and it's sort of irrelevant.
I
And
hope.
so there's a move for some to move to the
Yes.
Latin Mass, and there's some to move to guitar mass,
Yeah.
big mega church type thing. What does it mean to be
Yeah.
relevant in our world? I mean, do you think that the Mass is irrelevant?
Uh, I it can be if it if it isn't celebrated, because it is a celebration. It's and this is where the whole thing is. Remember the preface dialogue before the Eucharistic prayer. Lord be with you, with your spirit. Lift up your hearts. Even when a child has died, a funeral of a child, lift up your hearts. It's not ignoring the pain. It is certainly not ignoring the tragedy. It's not ignoring any of this. But where is our focus as believers? Is it to drown in grief, or is it to come to a realization that here is a God who is more powerful than the death that we are experiencing right now? Those kinds of dynamics need to be retrieved and understood and embraced and loved in so many ways to make liturgy relevant. If it isn't, because there's a whole other kinds of a thing. If it isn't, then it's worship. I'm the director of worship. It's really the director of liturgy for the diocese. Worship is basically us praying to God because we think that God needs to be prayed to, that God needs us to bow and scrape and to sing badly and to give half-hearted responses because somehow that makes God God. Again, that's sort of blasphemy right then and there, because God does not need that. If God does, then God isn't God. Liturgy is, yes, us praising God, blah, 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 but it's listening to then what God says back to us. Or it's listening to what God says to us first, the first initiative, and then responding to it. Until we get that right, then liturgy is all this play acting and the focus on make sure that I've got this much lace on my, on my surplice or my alb, or that we have this percentage of alcohol in the wine, or that we only use prefabricated hosts that taste like cardboard. All those kinds of things like that. We have to get beyond that to recognizing the fact, what is God asking of us as believers in the world? Let your light shine. You are light, on a city set on a hill. You are the light of the world. Those are realities that we have to sort of start believing, are the truth about us, and where our witness then needs to move from is in that recognition. If we don't, because we have everything to challenge the world's cynicism, we have everything to challenge the world's, a stubbornness and its obstinacy. To challenge its indifference. We have all of that at our disposal in liturgy, and yet, do we take it seriously enough? Do we want to take it seriously enough? That's the question.
I like this notion of liturgy as a dialogue between us and God, and it kind of reflects my experience of the Mass, right? Where a Mass is a conversation as a presider, right? It's a conversation with God, but also with the people. And I remember getting into the conversation with somebody one time where I expressed that I once ended up celebrating Mass alone. I was traveling, and I came to this place, and they gave me, a sort of a travel set, and I celebrated Mass in my room. And I expressed, I was like, I felt weird. It felt uncomfortable. And the people said, why? And I was like, well, because
Something's missing.
It's a dialogue, right? I say, the Lord be with you, and then what? With my own spirit, It's so the very expressions of it call
To be fair,
for
that's
a
like a high
response.
school Mass. I'll
Right.
say the Lord be with you, and then I'll respond.
Yes,
so I'm used to that.
It can
True.
be.
Okay, true. But yeah, I don't know. What's your opinion on it? I'm not a fan of the solo Mass. Whenever possible, I'm going to try and either be presiding or sitting with the people.
Right. No, and again, and that's, Tito, that's the other part of it. What's wrong with us sitting with the assembly? Again, gone is the idea, because I still have people ask, well, don't you have to do Mass every day? No. It's like the Second Vatican Council said, stop that, because it was becoming so routine as to become empty, and sort of pointless. And so this is the whole thing with you did Mass every day, and that gave rise to the idea of doing Mass by yourself, because under pain of mortal sin, you had to do this, or else end up in hell. And that's why you will find the private Mass at the very end of the missal. because like, only if an asteroid is coming to destroy the Earth and you feel the need to pray to God, well, you're going to see him in a few minutes. It's like for some reason there's nobody else around but you, and so maybe do a private mass. But if you don't, it's rather absurd. Because, like you say, the Lord be with you and with your spirit. Lift up your heart and lift it up to the Lord. It's like
Exactly,
well, the thing is, you can't pray. You can't celebrate the Mass alone.
Right.
The whole thing is meant to be done with people. I guess you could just Father, Son, Holy Spirit, go the opening prayer, maybe say the Gloria, then do some readings, and then I guess jump to the Eucharistic prayer, read that in its totality, and then give yourself communion. I guess you're
Then you're just kind of
definitely
you're
it
checking
definitely
boxes,
feels,
right?
Yeah, it definitely feels emptier without people.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right,
literally there's
right.
no people there, but also the liturgy itself, the movement itself feels emptier.
Right. It is. I mean, again, it's to try to shy away from that. I mean, there are guys, there's a chapel within the Catholic Center where my office is, and the previous bishop had put that in. Again, Bishop Luis is not really keen on using it a lot because he wants people to be in their parishes. But I do get priests, again, who will show up and who will, go into the chapel and do their own little mass. And I needed to find out who is doing that. So I put in a little sheet that says, put down your name and the intention, the reason why you're here, so that I keep a record of this. But yeah, it's like this neat. I have to. Well, why? It's